Oh, my love, my darling,
Wow.
I hunger for your touch. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guests Tim Davis and Marie. This is the podcast where all four of us went and saw a movie at our local Regal Cinema Theater, and now we're going to talk about it. In Matt's on the pilot right after the movie in the parking structure with this rival car parking next to us. We're going to try to talk about such things as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Do you have to see it in theaters? Could you save it for streaming? Do you snack during this movie? Can you relax during this movie? Or do you need to pay attention? I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and I say you need to pay attention for this one. So we're back. We saw another movie. We're going to talk about it. This movie is called A Haunting in Venice. It's the next in the series of Agatha Christie movie based on her books. And we've got another one here, the third one, with Hercule Poirot. Yeah, he's back. Mm-hmm. But anyway, who's in this movie, Tim? Tell us.
Well, of course, Kenneth Branagh returns as Poirot. He also directs. He's been in tons of things over the years, mostly a Shakespeare actor, but he's been in everything. And obviously, Poirot is a role he has taken on these last couple of years. We also have Michelle Yeoh. Shows up in this as a medium, as she prefers to be called. Tina Fey is in this from good old Saturday Night Live fame and other movies. She plays I think an Agatha Christie stand-in in a way. She plays a famous author who has fallen on hard times recently and looking to restart her book career, you could say. And the other actors, I'm not sure our name value known, but Jamie Dornan plays a troubled doctor in this. He is mostly known for being the star of the 50 Shades movies. I know him from being the huntsman on Once Upon a Time, the TV show back in the day.
He was in Belfast.
Oh, yeah, he was in Belfast as well. That's true. And Kelly Riley plays the mother of a daughter who died in this. And she's famous now for being on Yellowstone, the Kevin Costner Western, but she's been in many movies over the years, including the Robert Downey Sherlock Holmes movies, and as well as the Denzel Washington movie Flight. I would say that's it for name value actors that I recognize.
All right. Well, there's a few people in it, especially
As
for
there are in these movies.
a fairly small cast.
Yes.
So what is this movie about? Well, this movie, like the previous two, Murder on the Orient Express and A Death on the Nile. There's a murder to be solved. There's a group of people who have been cut off from the outside world due to some force, and one of them is a murderer. And in fact, in this movie, there are several murders in the movie, which are eventually sussed out by Hercule Poirot.
Hercule.
Kenneth Branagh's character.
Kenneth Branagh.
Although, he is straight up called Hercules at some point.
Yeah,
Well,
which is
yeah.
a running joke that no one says his name right.
Okay.
Right.
Hercule is his
Yeah, and I can't say it. And when we reviewed Death on the Nile, I couldn't say it. And
Still can't.
So, that being said, so this is sort of, we've got a different setting. We're in Venice this time, and there's sort of a spooky theme to this. There's this, basically what happens is everybody ends up at this seance. And really, Poirot is there to kind of debunk what is happening with this medium.
Skeptical.
He's very skeptical. The reason they're having the seance is this mother wants to communicate with her dead daughter, who died in the very house where they all get trapped due to a storm. And there's various other characters sprinkled in there, but it's all focused around what happened with the daughter. Is she trying to communicate from the grave? And is the medium real? And all those questions are answered in this movie, but I won't answer them now. I'll just tell you that, it's a typical one of these movies where Poirot...
Who done?
It's a whodunit. It's let's solve the murders. Let's figure out what's real and what's not real, and why everything happens. And you got to pay attention.
You do.
You do. If you wanna figure it out before he does. Is that really possible? I don't know. But anyway, Todd, let's share with our friends here on the podcast. And did you pay attention?
I paid very attention because I enjoy these movies.
Well, what is your gut reaction then, based on your attention to A Haunting in Venice?
My gut reaction is that just like the other two movies, I enjoyed this movie. All three movies are very similar, so it's like, how good can it be when you're kind of doing the same thing over again? But I do think each movie has, like, just in a little bit turned the story on its head to, like, come at stuff from different angles. And so this one kind of did that as well. And I enjoyed it. I thought the acting was good. I don't think anyone's going to win any awards for this, but I did enjoy the acting. I thought the script was really tight in some areas, which I liked, and then there were other areas where it was a little bit looser and funny, and I thought it fit pretty well. Like, there were just some kind of comical parts of people, not things happening, but people talking to each other, and it was almost like each time one of those came on, I felt it was a breath of fresh air from the seriousness, and it wasn't done in a way of, like, you know, so jokey, ha ha ha, like, you know, it just was kind of sprinkled through in a good mixture. And so I want to give it props to that, because we do live in a day and age where humor is used wrong in movies, I feel. So I felt like this one did the right way. And, you know, like, I'm going to chalk it up to the fact that I watch these movies and I pay attention. I almost was 100% in my guessing for this movie. I had a theory about probably halfway through it, and I was extremely close. I was only off by a couple of small details. So I was happy with myself with that. Like, but I don't think that's a mark of the movie.
It wasn't predictable, just...
Yeah, I mean, having done 2 other movies like this and knowing the format and stuff like that, I was just super paying attention, you know, a lingering shot on a teacup or like anything like that. I was like, I see what you did there. But that's fun for me. Like, some movies I go to just shut my brain off and to be like, okay, here's 2 hours of whatever, and I just want to relax or whatever. And then some movies I want to put my mind to work. And it's nice to know those movies when you go in. Like, I knew what we were in store for. I knew it was going to be my goal to predict what happens. And I had a good time doing it. So, do I think this movie is, like, stellar or awesome? No, but it's a nice whodunit, and it's a nice, like, little mental workout, I thought. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time. I support it. I like these movies, so I'm going to say go see it in theaters to support more of either these movies with Hercule Poirot. I'm fine with more. Or just in general whodunit movies. Right now, it seems like we've got Glass Onion and these movies are the only kind of movies going on. And there were times in this movie where, and this is probably just in my mind, there were times in this movie where it reminded me of Clue. And I just, like, kind of laughed at it. I was like, that's nice. Like,
Clue is fantastic.
A lot of, like, the close-up, like, key in holes, closing doors and stuff like that just really reminded me of Clue. I don't, you know, the keys are keys, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, so that was nice. So I support this movie. I say go see it. If you're not a fan of the first 2 movies, you're not going to like this one, so probably don't see it. But if you watched the first 2 or you've read the books and you're like, this is up my alley, then go see it in theaters and support it. Help Kenneth make more, I guess. And that's going to be my 2 cents gut reaction. Marie, how'd you feel about this movie?
I thought this movie did what it set out to do. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the first 2 movies, so it's nice to be with you guys where I've seen everything before now and can compare it. Things I liked about the movies were I enjoyed the cinematography and the close-ups and the angles and some of the dramatics with that. And even though it was kind of dark and creepy for most of the movie, there were some really nice shots of Venice. And one of the things I enjoy about this franchise is they're interesting places that they go for the movies. The settings are interesting and different. It was fun to see Tina Fey, and I thought it kept to the formula of these movies, but it was a little different. It was kind of creepy. There was more creepiness in this movie than I remember in the other movies, and things were jumping out at you, and I jumped several times. Luckily, that faded towards the end of the movie, because I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do 2 hours of jumping every time something comes out at me. So I don't enjoy that part of like horror creepiness. I don't like things jumping out at me. But I did spend some time like you, Todd, trying to figure it out, trying to like figure the formula, and I knew there'd always be a second murder and, maybe more. So I was kind of waiting for those things to happen. And then just kind of knowing from the other movies a little bit who ended up being the real murderer. I thought some of the side plots were interesting too. Tina Fey's character and the medium's whole situation was a fun little distraction from the main storyline. And also the kid that was in here, that actually I didn't see that one coming. And I also do like a movie that kind of wraps things up at the end, and so they did that, and I enjoy walking out without a ton of questions, and so they wrapped up pretty much most things, but also left something so that the main character is not as 100% sure that he knows exactly how the world works as he did at the beginning of the movie. And I enjoy that about people or characters when they think they know everything, and then maybe they don't. But just like you, if you like the first two movies, you'll enjoy this one.
Agreed. Tim?
I'm in step with you guys. I think this franchise is a lot of fun. Whodunits have always been one of those genres that I always enjoy when they're done well, and Branagh's kind of tapped into a little franchise of his own here, and I think he does a great job with them. As we've seen, not everybody can direct themselves in a movie and it work, but he's done all three of these now, and they've all been great, I'd say. The character work is great. I think he's really grown into the role even more. I remember I grew up on the PBS Poirot that was on for years because my parents always loved watching it, and so I was so used to that actor. And I think Branagh's really made this his own now, and he's kind of put his own spin on Poirot while still keeping a lot of the same quirks and delivery of like really clever lines, and I think that's to his credit, because that guy on PBS played him for like 20 years and really kind of became the role. So and again, I think they always cast well in these. Like they get a fun group of actors, and if I'm an actor, I'd want to be in one of these. I think it's fun. You get to do a twist on something or play something different, and Tina Fey clearly was having fun. I think Michelle Yeoh clearly wanted to be in this. I just it feels like a fun movie franchise. You can jump into one movie and then you don't have to. The only guy who has to recur is Kenneth. So and I think it was also interesting to incorporate horror elements into a usually murder mystery. Usually his movies are all cerebral and not straightforward, but at least taking you through the puzzle pieces and all that. But by making it a haunting in Venice, he did some things differently with this movie, with the tone, with the music choices, with the camera angles. Like he even did what I call the Spike Lee cam, where a couple of times where Poirot was searching around and the camera is on him and walking with him, and that was a very Spike Lee thing. But it worked for this tone because it showed that even Poirot is starting to wonder, wait a minute, I can't explain some of this. Am I starting to wonder if this is supernatural or not? And I think that helped the viewer also start to wonder, wait, should I really open up to something else here? Well, if Poirot doesn't know, how am I supposed to know? So I thought that was a great way to freshen up the formula while still being a Poirot movie. And I think as long as they keep doing this, I'm gonna see him when I can. I mean, do you have to see this in theaters? No, but again, it's about supporting different movies, different genres, and I think the atmosphere, setting, and some of the sound design in this was meant for a big screen, like especially some of the door slams and the sudden lurches and stuff. And I think that would work better with a surround sound system like a theater can provide you. So overall, yes, I recommend this as well, especially if you've been on this franchise for now or just love a good old whodunit. Matt?
Well, I thought this movie was fine. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't dislike it. Some things that I did like, Tim, you touched on the kind of a little bit horror, a little bit spookier of a theme. I like that. As a horror film aficionado, I like a little bit of a darker tone, and I thought that they pulled that off well without sacrificing kind of the elements of this formulaic, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean they didn't sacrifice the formula that has done well over 3 movies now.
They weren't cheap scares. They were all, I thought, earned.
They were earned, yes. It wasn't let's kill someone randomly for no reason
Or let's just do a scare just to make the audience jump. Like
Right.
It was actually like it in the movie plot at that moment. It made sense to do.
yeah. I felt like there was and you almost have to with a movie like this, but I felt like that there was a little bit more of a slow build at the front end of this, including some elements that I don't think we really needed, but maybe there's some tie-in there. There's a whole party that happens kind of at the beginning of the movie, which I could have taken or left.
Yeah.
But I can see even there's a little bit of tie-in to some of the elements of the movie. So overall, I didn't have a bad time. I did enjoy myself. And I guess I would recommend this movie, especially, as you all said, if you like the other ones, you'll like this one too. And this is not a bad entry. I thought that it was a little bit of a departure from the second movie, where, if I recall correctly, we got a lot more kind of in-depth into Perrault's history
Yes.
and personal backstory.
They hinted at it in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned the woman's name, and I couldn't remember if it was the woman he ended up with at the end of the last movie, Catherine.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was the nurse from the war.
No, I think Catherine was the nurse from the war. That was
Okay.
That was
Then
'cause
yeah,
he was
I
calling
agree
back
with you,
about war
Matt. The
stories.
most of the movie, I was like, "Where's the woman you ended up with in the last movie?"
Right.
And they never really touched on it.
Yeah. So
Knowing him, he probably drove her away.
yeah.
Well, spell it out for me.
Right. And I also agree, Marie. I like to have things wrapped up at the end of the movie, and they did a fine job of explaining everything. There was a reason for everything, and everything was buttoned up nicely at the end of this. So overall, yep, I enjoyed it, and I don't think it's a super great movie, but I think it's a fine addition and a good example of this type of movie. So,
Fair. Well, down to the important business here. How many haunted gardening tools would you give this movie? Which no one will understand until you see the movie, and that's
Yep.
the way I like it.
yes.
As well, it's like Clue, the wrench in the library.
Yeah, so 0 being the worst, 5 being the best, because then you can get a lot of gardening done, and that's a lot of vegetables that you can grow, and you're almost self-sufficient there. So,
And maybe you can even grow haunted vegetables.
haunted vegetable. My second choice that popped in my head was going to be how many haunted apples, but I went with haunted gardening tools.
Yes.
So, let's start with Matt.
Well,
As we
all
do.
right, as we do, yes. I'm going to give this 3 haunted gardening tools. I dug the spookiness of this movie, and that elevated it a little bit for me, but a solid movie, and I will say that I recommend seeing this movie. And that's what I'll say.
Good stuff. Marie.
I'm going to go with 3.2.
3.2. Nice.
I still have a couple of questions, but overall, it was fun.
Nice. Tim?
Yeah, I would say I've enjoyed all three of these. This one is probably... see, I don't want to say like least favorite. That doesn't sound
No, this
appealing.
is my least favorite of the three.
Yeah,
but
I still enjoy it because they're all different.
I enjoyed some of the other ones.
I think
just
I
a little
enjoyed the
bit
others a
better.
little more, and that's
Yeah.
not a knock.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put it at a 3.1.
I am definitely not too far off from one. I think the fact that I was at times in line, I felt, with Hercule himself in my thinking, that I pulled a new level of enjoyment out of this movie.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm going to chalk that up to Kenneth Branagh. I feel like that was his plan, and I fell right into it. So I landed on a 3.5.
Nice.
I had a good time. I'm proud of myself, and I do recommend seeing this movie. Not that you'll have much of a chance past if you want to see it in theaters. If you're going to see it in theaters, you got to do it now, because it's not going to be here much longer.
This is true.
And also, did anyone guess my song connection? And no, it's not because Elvis Presley is dead.
I did.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it?
Is it because of the...
It's Ghost.
It's Ghost.
Okay, good.
Ghost.
Yeah.
Well, no one
Yeah.
said anything. I was like...
More, come on.
I was
Yeah.
waiting.
Well,
for
I was
someone
going to
say
bring it
something.
up. At
Okay,
the,
good. I should have trusted
Does
you.
anyone have any extra thoughts? I was
Oh.
going to bring up your connection to the movie
Man,
Ghost.
I jumped the gun and I couldn't
Yeah, you couldn't help
just
yourself.
keep my mouth shut.
Well, does anyone have any extra thoughts before we wrap things up?
More whodunits.
More whodunits.
I love whodunits.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's a great genre.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm hoping that this franchise and Glass Onion just kind of play off of each other. Like they each
Yeah.
kind of come out with
Come
a
out every
movie
couple years, yeah.
during a lull of when there's nothing happening. You're like, oh, who done it?
Yeah, I guess the only other last comment I've had is I remember thinking through this movie is I thought these movies were funnier. Like
This
I
one
thought
was
I
the
thought
least
the other
funny.
movies were
Yes.
just a little bit funnier.
I think this one did have a couple witty exchanges, but yeah, I think because again the subject material, they wanted to go more serious. on
More
this one.
horror.
But then, because part of Poirot's
creepy.
fun is his wit and
Right.
playing off of each other because he's so cold at times.
Yeah,
And,
so there
and I
wasn't
thought
as much
there was
of
only a
that.
couple of those exchanges. I
Yeah.
thought Tina Fey was trying to bring comedy to scenes that needed it.
But it was subtle. It was subtle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was more subtle. Maybe that's a better way of framing
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
It was more subtle in this movie than some of the other ones. But it's not Glass Onions. You know, it's a different. It's
No,
a
it's
whole
not.
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
a
be
whole
as quirky
different
as
vibe.
those.
You know, it's a little bit more cerebral. But I did think that
No, you're right. I
there
think
was
you're right.
more humor in the other ones. But this one definitely was creepier and
I think that's what
a
they wanted.
different style. So they traded off for this.
Yeah, also, like, for the first two movies, it's, like, fun up until the murder.
And then he's
This
off.
movie, the fun
Oh,
goes
yeah.
out the window in, like, the first 10
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you know,
there was
even
no
before
fun.
the first murder happens, you're like, oh, the fun's gone.
Yeah,
You're right. You're right.
It's a little bit more
and
serious.
again, I think that was a choice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe that's what I was missing.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed the movie A Haunting in Venice. And we gave it an average rating of 3.2, not magical, haunted garden tools out of 5, which is a decent rating. And I think we'd all say that you should go see this movie unless you hate Venice or Hauntings or Kenneth Branagh or Tina Fey or Whodunits. If you hate any of those things, probably skip. But otherwise, you're good. And so, if you are listening to this, I'll speak directly to you right now, listener. Keep listening, keep downloading, keep subscribing, and we will see you next time.
Da da da
Da-da.
da 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 da.